Good morning, class 6. We move on to the next lesson. Lesson number 11, Light, Shadows and Reflection. This is part 1 video of this lesson wherein we will be discussing the topics of light and shadows. So what is light? Light helps us to see things. Light is something which we need to see things, isn't it? In a completely dark room, if you go inside, can you see anything? No, you can't, isn't it? As soon as you switch on the light, you start to see what is there inside the room. So, we need light to see things. But again, coming back to the question, what is light? Light is a form of energy. Okay, light is a form of energy. Just as heat is a form of energy, light is also a form of energy. Okay, who gives us light? The sun. On the earth, sun is the main source of light as well as heat. Isn't it? How does this light from the sun reach us? The light travels from the sun and reaches the earth. It travels through vacuum, through space where there is nothing. So, light does not require any medium to travel. Even if there is nothing, light can travel. Do you know how much time light takes to travel from the sun to the earth? Only 8 minutes. It takes only 8 minutes to cover a distance of 1.5 billion kilometers. So light is the fastest thing known to us. We don't know anything which is faster than light. As of now, we don't. Life is very essential. Light is very essential for life on earth. We cannot imagine life on earth without the light, isn't it? But coming back to the first point, how do we actually see? So there are 3 things required for us to see. The first one is the source of light. We need some light. Okay, so we need an object which gives out light. Then we need the object itself that we are to see. And the third one is the eye. How is this possible? See, when the light from the sun or the tube light or any other source falls on an object, in this case a fruit basket, what happens to the light? Some light is absorbed by the fruit basket, but some other is reflected back, bounces back from the fruit basket. This light which bounces out of the fruit basket, when it reaches our eyes, then we see things. Our eyes sends a signal to our brain and we are able to see the fruit basket. This is how you see things, right? So based on the source of light, whether an object is able to give light or not, we can divide the objects into 2 types. Okay, you can say this is one of the property of light. So a luminous object and a non-luminous object. A luminous object example is sun, candle, a firefly. Firefly is what? The cutie flies that glow in the dark, what you call as minmini puchi, I believe you call in Tamil. A non-luminous object, any object which does not give out light is a non-luminous object. Let us study the luminous and non-luminous objects in detail. So how will you define luminous object? Any object which gives out light, has light of its own and gives it out is called a luminous object. Luminous objects could be natural or it could be man-made. Some natural luminous objects are the sun, any kind of fire and the glowworm, isn't it? These are examples of naturally occurring luminous objects. Then the toy which glows in the dark, any sort of bulb. Then the watch. These days the watches come with a irradiant dial or a dial which automatically shows light, isn't it? So all these are artificial luminous objects or man-made luminous objects. What is a non-luminous object? How will you define a non-luminous object? Any object that does not emit light is called a non-luminous object. Okay. So in order to see a non-luminous object, what do you see? What do you need? You need a source of light. Do you need a source of light to see a luminous object? No, we don't. Isn't it? To see a non-luminous object, we require a light source or a luminous object. Look at the examples. The first one is the moon. How can moon be a non-luminous object? Have I written wrong? No, it is correct. Moon is a non-luminous object. Though it gives out moonlight, it is a non-luminous object. Why? Because it is not giving its own light. It is just reflecting the light which it has obtained from the sun. That is why moon is also a non-luminous object. And so are the bird, the pencil, the flag, all of these are also non-luminous objects. The second property that we are going to read is transparency. What is transparency? The ability of an object to let the light pass through it is called as transparency. Based on transparency, objects can be divided into three types. They are transparent objects, translucent objects, and opaque objects. Let us understand these three types of objects with the help of this diagram. The first column shows a boy holding a transparent object. Okay. Can you see the face of the boy through the object he is holding? Yes. We can see clearly, isn't it? Why we can see clearly? Because that piece of object is able to let the light pass through it completely. So what is a transparent object? A transparent object is an object which allows light to completely pass through it. And this is the reason why we can see clearly through these objects. Look at the second picture. The girl is holding a piece of an object in front of her and we are not able to see her face clearly. We can see something but we are not able to see clearly. Why is this so? This is because this particular object only allows some light to pass through it. Other light is blocked. So can we see clearly through it? We cannot see clearly through it. The third object is the opaque object. Can you see the face of the boy? We cannot. Isn't it? Why? Because this object does not allow any light to pass through it. That is why we cannot see the boy's face at all. Right? Let us understand this in more detail with a few examples. So what are transparent objects? Transparent objects are objects that allow all the light to pass through them. That is why we can see clearly through them. Example is a clear glass, window, a magnifying lens, our glasses, then a bulb, an incandescent bulb and a glass of water. All these are examples of transparent objects. What is a translucent object? An object which allows only some light to pass through it and blocks the other light. This is the reason why we cannot see clearly through these objects. Examples are a thin leaf, a thin top, some tissue paper, shades or goggles and frosted glass. These are examples of translucent objects. Butter paper also will come under the same category. Opaque objects are the ones which do not allow any light to pass through them. Isn't it? It will not allow any light to pass through them. So, we cannot see through them at all. For example, we have the wooden piece of wood, we have a bag, door, book, spoon. All these are examples of opaque objects. Now, opaque objects form shadows. Since they do not allow the light to pass through them, they obstruct the light, they form shadows. Isn't it? Have you seen shadows? Right? Everybody has seen shadows. So, what are the characteristics of a shadow? What is a shadow? It is a dark outline of an opaque object. For example, if you put a book in front of a torch, what shadow will be formed? It will be in the same shape as the book, isn't it? If you put a pen, the pen's outline only can be seen, isn't it? So, whatever the object we have put, the shadow will be an outline of that object only. We cannot get a different object, right? Why is it formed? It is formed due to the obstruction of light, because light cannot pass through it. It is being obstructed, it is being stopped. That is why a shadow is formed. What about the size of the shadow? This is very interesting. The size of the shadow does not remain same. It keeps changing. Have you played in the playground in the morning and the afternoon? Have you noticed the your shadow's length? How it is? If you have not, please go out today and watch. At different times of the day, you go out and observe what is the length or size of your shadows. The shadow is always formed on the opposite side of the light source. For example, at night you are walking on a road with street lights. If the street light is right in front of you, the shadow will be at the back. Once you have crossed the street line, now the street light is at your back, then you can see the formation of the shadow in front of you. Okay. Then, where is this shadow formed? Always the shadow is formed either on the ground or on the wall or some other place, isn't it? So, for shadow to be formed, you need a screen. If you don't have a screen, shadows are generally not formed. Now, let us see the changing size of the shadow. Here are three pictures taken at different times of the day. On the left side, the yellow picture shows you probably the morning sun, isn't it? So, look at the length of the shadow. The shadow is longer than the child himself, isn't it? Look at the middle picture. The sun is right above the head. It means that it is around afternoon. Look at the size of the shadow. The shadow is very small, smaller than the boy himself, isn't it? Look at the third picture. The third picture probably has been taken in the evening. Again, you find a long shadow. So, the size of the shadow keeps changing depending on what angle the source of light, in this case, the sun is. So, only the sun's light we can find different shapes. No, it is same for any other source of light. So, the second example shows you a cube. The object is the cube and the source of light is a torchlight. So, right when the torchlight is shown right above the cube, can you see the shadow? The shadow is so small that it does not look like a cube. When I have lowered the torchlight at a very acute angle, see the shadow. The shadow is so long that the shadow is actually rectangular in shape rather than a cube. And in the third picture, when again I take it up, you see a cuboid form of shadow. So the length or the size of the shadow keeps changing depending on the angle of the light as well as the distance of the light source from the object. If you change the distance, the length of the shadow will also be different. Here is a small fun activity that you could do using shadows. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to take a source of light. It could be a torch, it could be your a cell phone, or it could be a emergency lamp, anything you take, and you have to use a wall, okay, a plain wall, and you have to make different shadows with the help of your hands, right? You can make the shape of any animal, bird, or anything, and then you have to click the picture of this shadow and send it to me. You have to make at least two figures using shadows. Okay. Um, the next slide is a little bit helpful for you. So it will help you in making the activity that I just now suggested to you. Okay, so the animal and the shape of both the hands are given, and you can practice this and then do it. It seems very easy at first, but believe me, it is not that easy. You need to practice it and take very good pictures and send, right? Now, all of you have seen puppet shows, isn't it? So, there in Andhra Pradesh, there is a special type of puppet show where they use leather puppets and its shadows. Okay, they are not 3D puppets or dolls that generally are used, but here they use shadow puppets. Okay, this is called as the Tola Bommalu Ata. This is done in Andhra Pradesh. So, I hope you will complete the activity today and practice a little bit and upload it to me as soon as possible. We'll continue the rest of the lesson in part 2 video. That's it for today. Goodbye. Have a nice day.